Hello, and welcome to Top Tips to Ensure Flawless Microsoft 365 and Teams Experiences. Today's webinar is sponsored by Zscaler and Microsoft and produced by Actual Tech Media. My name is Scott Becker. I'm from Actual Tech Media, and I'm excited to be your moderator for this special event. Now, before we get to today's great content, we do have a few housekeeping items that will help you get the most out of this session. First off, we want this to be an informative event for you, so we encourage any questions in the questions box in our webinar control panel. Not only will we have team members responding to questions during the live event, but we'll have a dedicated Q&A session at the end of the presentation where we'll discuss in greater detail some of the top questions that you ask. The Q&A panel is also the place to let us know about any technical issues that you might be experiencing. A browser refresh will fix most audio, video, or slide advancement issues, but if that doesn't work, just let us know there in the Q&A and we will provide further technical assistance. Second, in the handout section of your webinar control panel, you'll find that we're offering several resources. I'd especially like to call your attention to 7 resources from the sponsors today. There are a few resources on Zero Trust using Zscaler and Microsoft in combination. There's some great troubleshooting resources. And there's a really valuable PDF about how you can use Microsoft Azure consumption commitment credits that you have to get Zscaler's offering from the Azure marketplace. So I encourage you to access those resources now and share them with your friends and colleagues. Third, at the end of this webinar event, we'll be awarding a $250 Amazon gift card to one lucky registrant. Of course, you must be in attendance during the live event to qualify for the prize. Official terms and conditions of today's prize drawing can be found in the handout section. Just scroll to the bottom and you'll find the prize terms and conditions link there. Now, finally, one of the best benefits of this event is the opportunity to ask a question of our expert presenters. And to help encourage your questions, we have a special additional prize for you. That's another gift card, this one for $50 for the best question. So after the event is over, we'll look at all the questions that came in and pick out the very best one and then contact that prize winner. And with that, let's get to today's action-packed webinar. So I am delighted to introduce you to our presenters today, Krish and Vincent. So Krish is Senior Director of Product Marketing at Zscaler, and Vincent is Senior Product Manager at Microsoft. So first off, I'm going to welcome Krish on. Krish, thanks for joining us.
Great to be here, Scott, and thanks for making the time, everyone, for joining this event.
Yeah, I second that. Thank you, everybody. So let's start off with a poll, Krish. So this is a poll for everybody here in the audience. What's your top challenge when ensuring optimal digital experiences? And answering this will really just give us a sense of where your head is right now, and it'll help us tailor the presentation. But so options here: too many dashboards make it hard to troubleshoot IT problems, lack of visibility into users' home Wi-Fi and local networks, or too many alerts or escalations for minor issues. Realize that some of these, you might face several of these obstacles, but which one is your top concern? So we'll leave that up there for a minute there, Krish, just to give everybody an opportunity to take a look. But I will say it looks like we're getting a clear winner, but the other two also have plenty of takers. Okay, well, let's go ahead and
not surprised
go
at
ahead,
all.
Krish. Yeah, let's go ahead and share out those results. Oh, sorry. But so, Krish, we're at 50% on the Wi-Fi and local networks, and then 34% on too many alerts or escalations, and 15 on the needing a single pane of glass. What do you make of those results, Krish? Is that what you expect?
Yes, and this is what we hear from a lot of our customers as well, especially since COVID happened. We have a lot of remote users, and a lot of our businesses are going back to a hybrid model. That still points to the fact that we have employees working from home, working from coffee shops. Continues to be an issue, right? The lack of visibility and being able to figure out how to troubleshoot those scenarios when end users complain of poor networks, slow access to applications, data, services, and whatnot.
Yeah. All right. Well,
And
Chris,
I'm
I'm
not
looking
surprised by the third one
presentation.
either.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right.
I'm not surprised by the third one either. We'll get into more about that
Okay.
as we through the event.
All right. Sounds good.
All right, I'm going to take it away. And first, I want to start by just giving us an opportunity to see where we're at today, right? So prior to COVID, and maybe even a few years prior to that, we had all the employees, all our coworkers coming into the office and accessing all those critical applications and services, the whole suite of the Microsoft 365 offering. Beyond that, our applications and services on Azure, perhaps some of the other clouds as well. And then also some of those on-prem data center based applications provided by SAP, Oracle, and the likes. Life was simple then because all of our infrastructure was optimized for the employee coming into the office. As a result, and this is where Zscaler really got into the business of security, where we were able to help these customers secure, our customers rather, secure employees no matter where they are, right? And this is in complete contrast to what existed prior to that, where you had all your security appliances and firewalls and such in the data center. Now, come COVID, and certainly today as well, things have changed, where you've got users not just coming into the office, but also working on the move. You've also got a lot of regional, smaller sized offices that pretty much are treated as their own unit, perhaps as a home office or a cafe like experience, if you will. So, in those scenarios, it is best served to be able to secure users no matter where they are, but also optimize for the fact that they need to be connected directly to the applications they need without having to go through the data center to get to them. Now, this is not going to change in the short term, even the medium term, perhaps the long term, because there's been a number of studies that have polled employees and business leaders to understand where the sentiment lies. Here's a McKinsey study that found that 63% of the leaders and employees that they reached out to through a survey said that they prefer hybrid or remote working models post pandemic and beyond. And depending upon which firm you hear from, for example, Accenture had that number at over 80%. So this might be the new normal, and it certainly is for me, and quite likely is for a lot of us here on this event as well. Now, given this, we are ill prepared to really continue to be successful in this as this transition continues to take place. Number one, Gartner found that over 90% of firms, enterprises, just don't have the technical abilities, systems, and such to be able to support this sort of hybrid model. And that is evidenced by the fact that there's been a 35% increase in the number of support tickets coming in from our employees and our end users. And this is all when some of us even have to find ourselves working in hybrid environments as well, often working from home or elsewhere, or sometimes in the office. Very complicated. Now, the big theme here is employees are no longer in the office. They've dispersed. They are working from homes. They're working on the move. They're working from regional offices, right? Now, and sometimes in the office as well. So employees have dispersed. Now, the trend that preceded that, and I will focus on Microsoft here, is our applications have dispersed too. And this is evidenced by the immense adoption we've seen for Microsoft 365. As of 2022, we had 345 million paid seats to Microsoft 365. That's a lot. That's almost the population of the United States. In 2022, there were also about 40,000 users using Microsoft 365 every hour. Think about that immense capacity to be able to support those many users at every single stage of the day. And if you switch to collaboration, because that is the theme and the mantra for remote work, for hybrid work, which is video conferencing and virtual meetings, Microsoft Teams reached 270 million users in 2022. And that's an immense jump from the year before, which was 145. So massive adoption. Now, just as you said in the poll earlier, with users all over the globe, not just in the offices, accessing applications that rely on networks that are not in our control, whether it's local ISPs, Wi-Fi networks, and even the SaaS providers when networks, in this case, Microsoft 365. There's a lot of visibility we need to get to ensure the best digital experiences for our employees so they can be at their productive best. And the tool set we have today is just not setting us up for success. We've got very specialized tools and products that do very specific things that were built for the years that preceded 2023 for sure, but certainly the pandemic. We have device monitoring tools. We've got endpoint-based network monitoring tools. We've got availability tools, and some of the SaaS vendors also have their own CloudWatch or status page services that tells you when the services are on or off or are experiencing latencies. Now, the issue with this is it leaves blind spots, especially when you've got zero trust based architectures in place, proxies in place to secure your users no matter where they are. And that's one thing that Zscaler does very well as well. We're a leader in that space. Now, given that we have many tools to do this sort of monitoring, it's really hard to correlate insights across each of these tools. Now, it's true that each team might have a preference for one specific tool. For example, desktop teams or end user compute teams might prefer to use the device monitoring tools. The network teams might want to continue to use the network monitoring tools and so forth. However, it is really hard for these teams to collaborate and bring their data together from their respective tools to figure out what's really causing the problem, the slowdown, the latencies, the frustrated end users, the loss in productivity and such. As a result, these teams are always reactive versus proactive when it comes to not just seeking opportunities for optimization, but also when it comes to solving problems. And I have lived this in my past, where we're often required to spend many hours, have many pairs of pizzas in these war rooms to figure out what is going on by staring at each other's dashboards, if you will, to figure out what the problem is. Also, because each of these tools are unique in their own ways, they all require multiple agents, multiple forms of instrumentation, and that itself takes many hours of maintenance on a weekly basis. And lastly, and you brought this up too as well when you responded to the poll, is that each of these tools have their own sets of alerts configured that continue to barrage us on a daily basis, sometimes hundreds, even thousands of alerts. What eventually happens in that scenario is it becomes white noise. We tune it out. We don't respond to alerts like we used to, and we wait for end users to complain, which again gives us a bad reputation when it comes to serving our end users and employees when they are trying to be digitally efficient, to be productive, and get work done. Here's where Zscaler has seen an opportunity and has dedicated its efforts to help customers overcome some of these challenges. And it does so by tracing all transactions, every single request and response that users makes and receives, right from the end user's device, across their Wi-Fi, no matter where in the world they are or which device they're using, through their ISP, could be Comcast or could be a tier one network as well, through the Zero Trust Exchange, which is what offers the critical security services that secures end users no matter where they are, offered by Zscaler, down to the destination application. Could be in the cloud, could be a SaaS-based service, could also be in a data center. And crunches and correlates all these metrics it gathers, these telemetry it gathers, and presents it in the one factor, the one metric that truly matters, the only one that really matters, the end user experience score. Following that, it also integrates with some of the more popular services, certainly Microsoft Teams, to be able to to correlate data in terms of what's going on with active Microsoft Teams calls, along with everything else that could be impacting its performance in the network, the device, and so forth. So you can really holistically begin to see what is causing a poor user experience score for a specific user on a specific meeting. So that is a really powerful capability to have that single pane of glass to be able to see all of that. Better yet, it also offers AI ML based capabilities to very quickly, to instantly identify the root cause of the problem. And this is something that we touched upon previously as well as we in this event, where it's really hard to correlate all this telemetry across all these domains or functions or silos of the application delivery chain, if you will, and really figure out what's that one true cause for that poor experience, for that user complaint, for that slowdown that you may have detected even before the end user complained. And that's where the automated root cause analysis that's powered by AI and ML is really, really, really powerful. As a result, what it offers us, and by us, I mean, firstly, the network operations teams, is to be able to proactively monitor and optimize performance before users are impacted. You have the ability to watch, to see what's going on from the watchtower across all these elements of the application delivery chain to figure out what's slowing down and what's browning out and solve and fix it before users are impacted. Then secondly, for our service desk teams that are measured by how many tickets they close and how quickly they do so, so that they can put users back to work quickly, using the AI-powered capabilities, they very quickly are able to triage where the root cause of the problem is for the user complaint and either fix it themselves. And you said it yourselves, a lot of the issues are often because of poor Wi-Fi or local networks. And this is a theme that we've seen across all our customers, especially through COVID and hybrid work. And if the L1 support specialist here was able to simply say, hey, power cycle your access point or get closer to your Wi-Fi access point because I see the data here and it tells me you have a poor Wi-Fi signal, that's going to save a ton of time for L3, L2, L3, and more expensive specialists, firstly. And secondly, it'll also put that end user back to work as quickly as possible. There's the benefit of AI-powered root cause analysis that really helps these service desk teams quickly troubleshoot and resolve every issue that takes place, whether it's in the device, the network, or the application, or even the Zscaler security cloud. Now, I want to walk through a couple scenarios where you will see this in action. And firstly, let's say that you are monitoring 3 of these applications, and I'm going to focus on OneDrive for Business here. And you can see here Workday and Box are green. They have a fairly high user experience score, so they're not problems right now. However, we're starting to see that OneDrive for Business is starting to brown out. It's orange. It's 65 out of 100. So as a network ops person, what you can do is click into that and see what's really causing that. And here you can see that there's some users in India that are impacted, and some of our other users are in the orange zone. So what really is going on? So let's focus on the users in India first. Upon clicking into it, you can begin to see that there's high latency between an ISP and Microsoft. And if you click in further by hitting that magnifying glass, you'll be able to see the exact cost for it. My apologies. I got a little trigger happy with the slides here. You'll begin to see the real cost for it. What exactly, which hops, which IP addresses were involved in that high latency. And as a result, you can then open up a ticket with BSNL, which is the internet service provider, and state that there's high latency between these network elements and get it resolved, right? So there's a lot of power in having data and evidence to be able to share with your partners, in this case, the ISP, to be able to solve that problem quickly and put those users back to work. Now, let's take a scenario where a service desk team is able to support a traveling employee. In this case, we have an employee traveling from Europe, France specifically, to Ohio and visiting family, let's say, and has to join an important customer call, right? So this employee jumps onto a Microsoft Teams call and is experiencing really, really bad latency, right? So as a result, this is what they see on the screen. And we've all been here. We've all joined meetings and found that there's either laggy video or you can't hear the other person on the call. And often we have to turn off our own videos to be able to continue to stay on those calls, even then suffering from poor experiences. So in this case, what the support specialist was able to do is see that the issue is isolated to this employee alone and not everybody else in the organization. And then clicking into this person's particular experience is able to see that, hey, yes, it's true. The team's quality score is really low. It's 11 out of 100. So what's causing it? So as you go down, you begin to see that there is fairly high latency across some of the sharing for audio, video, as well as screen sharing. And clicking further, you can begin to confirm that it's because of high latency between Hannah's PC right up to her gateway. And the reason for that is, by looking into the analysis here, is that there's a low Wi-Fi signal, right? So it's at 60%. Problem solved. So the support desk executive analyst was able to get back to Hannah and say, hey, Hannah, you need to power cycle your access point or get closer to your Wi-Fi access point to get a better experience. And better yet, without having to even go through that whole process of figuring out what the problem is themselves, the support analysts can also very quickly, using AI-powered root cause analysis, confirm this to be the fact, right? So this is where using all the past learnings of what would have caused a particular issue to analyze the current scenario and figure out what is the root cause for this particular case comes into play, right? So our machine learning models continuously train themselves based upon all our customer scenarios so that they get far more accurate and precise as you continue to use them over and over again. Now, in addition to that, you're also able to look at all the device metrics, specifically around software and operating system performance for Windows machines through that native integration that we have with Microsoft Endpoint Analytics. So you can begin to see device performance data, all the data that comes from Microsoft Endpoint Analytics for OS and software issues, all on one pane of glass, as it correlates to network performance, hop by hop view that you just saw, which helped us troubleshoot the Wi-Fi problem, all on one single pane of glass. That gives you that end-to-end view that you saw earlier in this event. Now, the impact of this is really pronounced. The classic burn down for any end user complaint when a ticket is submitted is to eliminate what the root cause could be. And the flow is, is this a global, regional, or an issue related to an office, right? That's where you start. If it is, you escalate it immediately. If not, you continue to work down again. Is it a Wi-Fi issue? Is it an ISP or internet issue? DNS or routing, and so forth. And as you begin to go down this list, it starts to get more and more expensive to solve those problems because often the tickets are escalated to L2 and often L3 resources to solve them. Now with AI-based root cause analysis, the L1 support analyst is able to very quickly fix the problem herself or himself or theirself and put the end user back to work. And in those select cases where they need to be escalated, they are able to, again, use that AI-based root cause analysis to very quickly decipher whether it's an application problem, a network problem, or a device problem, and route that ticket to the right team with the relevant data so they can solve that problem as quickly and efficiently as possible and get back to their day job while still putting the end user back to work faster. So there's a lot of benefit in being able to do this efficiently, as we've all seen and experienced over the last few years. Now, I want to share an example of a customer. Kareem is an Uber subsidiary, right? And through COVID, they were really scaling their business. They wanted to grow from 1,200 remote customer service reps to 5,000 remote customer service reps, excuse me, as the business grew. And in order to offer the best customer service, they needed to make sure that their customer service representatives were getting the best digital experience to support Kareem's customers. And here's where Zscaler Digital Experience was able to help help Kareem ensure that's the case. Anytime that a customer service rep raised the ticket, they were able to improve their mean time to resolution by 62%. And the benefit of this is twofold. One is it put the customer service back to work very quickly and working on ensuring customer satisfaction and delight for Kareem. And secondly, it also assisted the IT team at Kareem to be far more efficient with their time and resolve tickets faster. And there are a number of other such stories that you will find on zscaler.com/ZDX if you want to take a look at some of our other customer stories. Now, I would like to very quickly summarize everything you've learned so far. Firstly, it is important to unify your digital experience monitoring practices. To have silos of monitoring does not set us up, rather, for how the world has changed in terms of how business is done. Users are everywhere, applications are everywhere, and there's a plethora of devices that users use to get to those applications and to stay productive. We live in a digitally driven world. As a result, we need to unify digital experience monitoring, and that's what Zscaler with Zscaler Digital Experience does, so that you have that visibility end-to-end to be able to solve problems as quickly as they happen. Secondly, it helps you continuously optimize productivity, not just for end users by putting them to work faster, as you've heard many times so far, but also for IT teams supporting those end users. And this will immediately begin to show, as it has for many of our customers, on their satisfaction scores. And thirdly, if you use Zscaler today to secure your employees and end users, no matter where they work from, there's no new software to deploy. All you need to do is turn on the Zscaler Digital Experience service, and you'll begin to see all this telemetry within your dashboard to be able to support your end users. As a result, you're able to really support a secure hybrid workforce. Secure because you've got Zscaler's Zero Trust Exchange supporting and securing your remote or hybrid worker, and you've got Zscaler Digital Experience that ensures that no matter where they are, as they are secured, they are able to have the best digital experience possible in order to support their business. Now, that said, I'd like to very quickly dive into a poll question.
Great.
Seen a
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, so and this one is which monitoring capability is most important to you? So that's network, hop by hop, view, latency, packet loss, application availability and performance insights, and then end user device performance metrics. So once again, it's just your top capability, the top priority of those.
It looks like application availability is winning this race so far at 55%.
Yep.
And the one thing I'd like to note here is this poll question was forced to be single entry when in reality all three might matter to you. But if you think about application availability and performance insights, it's a good proxy for everything that encompasses application performance, which is devices and the
Mm.
network. So it's a good proxy for digital experience here.
Yep. Should we
And
go
that's
ahead
no
and
surprise.
uh, move out those results?
Yeah, please
Push
do.
out the results? Okay.
Excellent. Thank you, Scott, for doing that poll. And now what I'd like to do is hand it over to Vincent Philippe, who is going to share how things work under the hood. And this is an exclusive, and you're the first ones to hear it. So, Vincent, please take it away.
Thank you, Krish. Hi, my name is Vincent Philippe Lauzon. I'm going to talk to you about Microsoft and Zscaler partnership. I'm in the Azure Data Explorer product group at Microsoft. I'm a product manager. I'm responsible primarily for ingestion and developer experience. Zscaler leverages Azure Data Explorer service. This is what I'm going to talk about. And in a partnership we developed over the years. Now, Azure Data Explorer is in the real-time big data analytics space. So if I would summarize what is big data and what is real-time, basically big data, we usually describe it with the three V's: the volume, the velocity, and the variety of data format. So if you look at volume, you're thinking about massive ingestion pipelines where you have like thousands of devices, hundreds or thousands of customers. That generates like a large volume of data. Velocity is at what type of pace does data arise? Like we're talking about every minutes, every seconds. And the variety of format is basically we're now beyond the traditional relational databases with structured data. We have JSON-based data and a lot of free text data, especially if you do log analytics, you'll have a lot of free text like traces in your systems to analyze. And doing real time over that means you want to do aggregation over all this big volume of data arriving to you at a fast pace with different format, and you want to aggregate that in real time. Azure Data Explorer is also a time series database, so we're very strong at looking at signals that arrives over time, and that plays well with the velocity aspect of this big data real-time analytics. Here's a typical architecture of Azure Data Explorer. You see Azure Data Explorer or ADX in the white box on the top right. Typically, you'll have some sources feeding data into ADX. So here we represent native connectors. We have like Azure Event Hub, Azure IoT Hub, Kafka, Azure Cosmos DB or Azure Data Factory, but we also have a slew of connectors. Here we have Kafka, but we also have Logstash, Spark, different connectors that can bring data into ADX. Now the data gets ingested in ADX, it gets indexed in a way that you can then do ad hoc queries very quickly, like seconds latency. But you can also expose the data through Power BI or different visualization platforms such as Grafana or Tableau. And you can export that data to the data lake so that you can serve other application or platforms upstream, such as Azure Synapse Analytics or other data warehouses. Let me show you a quick demo with sort of a metric scenario where you want to look at metric if you would be using Azure Data Explorer directly. What you see here is the web tool to query Azure Data Explorer. I have a database already set up. Actually, those are real metrics we use for clusters. So those are metrics about Azure Data Explorer. So I wanted to show you how you would use Azure Data Explorer to query your metrics and how you can get insights for from those metrics. Azure Data Explorer uses a query language called KQL or Custo Query Language. It basically works with, start with a table. This is my table, Custo Matrix. Then you pipe and you put an operator. In this case, I'm saying, give me the count of rows for that table. You can see there's about 4 trillion rows in that table. So it's a big table. And if you look at the time, there's a timestamp column. If you look at min and max of that, you'll see that it spans like 20 to 30 days of data. Now, if we look at sample of that data, see that I have many columns, like that environment. This is basically telemetry we collect from multitude of clusters around the world that we run as a service in Azure. And we collect that telemetry and we push that into that table that has a defined schema. If I scan the table, you'll see, okay, I got timestamp and different things. The data center, where's it located? I could do something. I could look at the last day of data, so where timestamp is greater than a day ago, and find a distinct metric name that I have in there. So just to give me an idea of what's available in the system. So okay, I got like 800 something metrics that have been exposed in the last days. And you can imagine this is a service, so we put lots of different metrics to track the health of the system. What I'm going to be interested in here is a metric called rows sent. Okay, so it's part of the export procedure in the cluster. So let's look at that. So I'm looking at this table still for the last day where the metric is equal to rows sent. Now I'm narrowing down the view of my table, those trillions of rows, the last day and a specific metric. And then I'm going to look at a couple of columns that I know that should be of interest to me. Each metric has a timestamp, a data center, that's an Azure data region, Central US, East US, Europe, etc. Role, metric name, space, and then the metric itself, so the value of the metric. And then you can see that we have some dimensions. So some dimension that a metric could be interesting to slice and dice into. And you see here we use a completely custom representation. So we said, okay, we get a cluster, consumer ID, the database, event name, and logs environment. So what's going to be of interest to me is the event name itself. But before I do that, we're going to look at the metric itself. And I'm just going to represent it by data center. So what is the sum of those metrics per data center for the last day? And I see that the North Europe Azure region has the most row sent, and then East US. And I could take that query and I could drill down, if that would be of interest to me, I could drill down and find out why exactly is there a specific cluster or specific database that does that. I'm going to stop that. Instead, we're going to look at metric over time. So looking at the metrics as a time series. So looking at those row sends, okay, the last day got trillions of records. Okay, let's look at it by bins or buckets of 1 hour and across data center and render that as a time chart. So maybe I can learn something from this. So not just looking at a static value like a statistic per day, but looking at how does it work over time. And here I'm looking at a window of 5 days, the last 5 days. And I see, okay, good. North Europe is indeed, having a lot of row sends, and it follows a certain daily pattern. Makes sense. Now I could dive a bit deeper instead of trying to do that. Like you look at this graph and it's a bit messy. Like there's tons and tons of Azure regions. I think there's over 50, if not 60 by now. So it could be interesting to just look at the most popular ones. So I could try to go there and remove different regions, but instead I could use the Cousteau language to do that. So what I'm doing here is just taking the maximum for the last 5 days and give me the top 3 of those max, and then render again. And I got only 3 regions, and it's much easier to read, and I can then split I can remove different curves. But you see that I'm using the power of the query language to help me find a needle in an haystack instead of doing that manually. And this is super useful when you do time series analytics. And finally, just wanted to show you that you can also do finding the event. If you remember, if we look at the data again, you remember that there was this dimension list that might be interesting. And this is where the power of the full text indexing is useful. So in this case, I want to look at extracting the event name. And so we have this schema that between the dimension name list and dimension value, I can basically split the string, find the value we want. So in this case, I want the event name. So I'm going to I did some trial and error to find it, basically the 7th one. So I do a split by the symbol, and I take the 7th one, and then I summarize again the metric, but by event name this time, which is within a text column. And you can see that I still have very good performance going over trillions of rows and get the insights I want. So it was just to quickly show you how you could get value out of your data, getting insights by slicing and dicing your telemetry data. Okay, now that you have a better idea of what Azure Data Explorer is and what it can do, let's talk about the relationship we had with Zscaler over the years. So we had a very good collaboration with Zscaler. So we worked together to do data model selection. So basically, what's the best approach for Zscaler domain of data? How do you represent that in ADX to have the best performance? What's the best configuration of cluster? ADX comes in the form of a cluster, like multiple machines, and you can configure it in different ways, having different SKUs, having different size, managing networking in different ways. And then we work together at finding the best solution for multi-tenant, meaning how do you use the same infrastructure to host the data of multiple end customers, to have the best availability, the best scalability, the best security, etc., to meet Zscaler solution. I would say in general, the product group of Azure Data Explorer does a lot of collaboration with partners such as Zscaler to accelerate their go-to-market. Our goal is for customers to get the best value out of the service or the product as possible and the fastest. Azure Data Explorer is a service usually ramp up very quickly and you can deploy very quickly. And we thrive at customer achieving that. And the point is to save times for partners instead of ramping up on the technology to focus on their domain problem and to bring value to their own customers. And when you embark in the journey of real-time analytics over telemetry data, you empower your people finding, pinpointing problems, troubleshooting, finding root cause analysis in your organization, in your digitized processes. We're glad to see ZDX is ready to tackle the explosive volumes of real-time data streams our mutual customers are facing in this new era of hybrid modern workplace. We're proud that our technologies can contribute as a key element in the value chain to power up such a massive real-time data crunching solution. Thank you all for your time. I'll pass it back for Q&A.
Oh, hey, yeah. So really nice presentation. Sorry, there, I was of course on mute. So, Chris, the first couple of questions came in about integrating with other tools. So this first one is: we use NextThink for device monitoring. How can Zscaler Digital Experience and NextThink coexist?
I think that's a great question, Scott. And while Zscaler Digital Experience has capabilities to monitor device performance in addition to networks and applications as well, there are several customers of ours who've used NextThink and other endpoint monitoring tools like Eternity or Lakeside software and are comfortable using it. However, the insights they enjoy are primarily great for supporting endpoints, which are devices, PCs, Macs, so forth, right? And if the problem was because of network latency, application availability, or any sort of security proxies or any other proxies that stand in the path of the device and the destination application, these products are unable to identify those as being issues. So the way a lot of our customers use NextThink and Zscaler Digital Experience together is to close those visibility gaps. They can continue to use NextThink to identify if there's an issue in the first place, but then very quickly switch over to Zscaler Digital Experience to see the entire picture, devices, networks, and applications, to identify what the root cause of the problem is so they can solve it quickly. And over time, we found a lot of our customers begin to phase out some of these more point or specialized tools, such as endpoint monitoring tools, and standardize upon digital experience monitoring tools like Zscaler Digital Experience to serve their needs.
Okay. All right. Great.
I hope
Yeah. And Chris, yeah.
Yeah.
And sticking with you with a similar question, but this one's about ServiceNow. They're saying we use ServiceNow to manage our IT support processes. Does ZDX and ServiceNow, do those work together?
They do. That's another great question. So almost all our customers use ServiceNow for their ITSM processes. And I'm happy to say that anytime Zscaler Digital Experience or ZDX identifies a performance problem, it automatically triggers an alert. And this alert gets opened up as a ticket in ServiceNow, along with all the diagnostic information, the root cause of what the problem could be, so that when the service desk analyst or the IT support analyst opens the ticket, he, she, or they are able to very quickly identify who to route the ticket to or to solve it themselves. So yes, we do have native integration with ServiceNow to support some of these ITSM processes.
Okay, excellent. Hey, this next question is kind of a broad question, so I'll put it to you first, Krish, and then Vincent. I'll just say if you want to add anything. But this question comes from Lynn, who's asking any advice of ensuring seamless collaboration among remote teams using Microsoft 365 and Teams, optimizing network and connectivity settings to ensure smooth audio and video conferencing.
Oh yeah, this is I love this question, and I think Vincent, Philippe, I'd love to collaborate with you on a response here too. The fact is, users are everywhere. There is no need for them to have their traffic backhauled through offices or data centers to get to SaaS-based applications. Microsoft is everywhere. We've got availability zones and cloud points of presence all across the globe. So when there's a user, say in Beijing or Tokyo, trying to get to a Microsoft service or get on a Teams call, they should be able to directly access the point of presence that Microsoft has in those regions. And at Zscaler, you're able to do so through the Zero Trust Exchange that's located in those regions and directly up to these services. In order to optimize network and connectivity here, you need to be able to monitor it first and see if there's opportunities for optimization. Without that visibility, without that insight, it's really hard to identify optimization opportunities. And that's where having strong digital experience monitoring capability to be able to see how things are performing for your users, no matter where they are, and no matter which applications they use, and then to find those opportunities to optimize, puts you in a position where you can do exactly that. Vincent, Philippe, do you have anything to add to this great question?
Thank you. Listen, you did put it pretty well. I think the only thing I would say is that indeed we do invest at Microsoft in our global network, so you actually pay for it when you pay for the service. So using a great product like ZDX, you can make sure that you're compliant with your security rules and then benefit from all that network optimization we invest in.
Okay, excellent. And Vincent, Philippe, there were a couple of questions for you here. One is, what's the easiest way to get started on Azure Data Explorer?
Yeah, good question. The easiest way, we do have a free tier, so we do have a free cluster offering. We'll share the link with the rest of the material. So that's a great way to start. You can have a cluster that can have up to 100 gigabytes of data on it, so you can ingest your telemetry data, your logs, or anything, and you can start learning very quickly. A great way to learn would be the Custo Detective Agency, where it's kind of a gamification on the learning experience. So you're kind of part of a detective agency, and you have to solve cases by using the Custo query language. So I would say that's the two great ways to learn and to get started.
Okay, excellent. Let's see, there's a question here from Elena who's asking, we're on hybrid remote working model, plus the internal applications, some are on-prem and some are cloud-based. Does your tool distinguish that, or it doesn't really matter as long as you have internet connection? So I think, Chris, that looks like a question for you.
Yeah. Thanks, Scott. Elena, you're absolutely right. It doesn't matter as long as you have an internet connection. And Zscaler Digital Experience handles all that other complexity for you. As long as you have a line of sight for these applications and you've got the lightweight endpoint agents deployed on the endpoint machines, you're able to trace the network path directly to those applications, no matter where they are, especially when they are secured by Zscaler. And and get the telemetry, the insights, and the performance analysis that you're looking for.
Okay, super. Let's see. Here's another question. Having to do with there are obviously a lot of Azure services. Somebody's wondering, is Azure Data Explorer part of Azure Synapse?
Yes, it is. So Azure Data Explorer, as the name suggests, it's part of Azure, and we also have the same offering inside of the Synapse workspace. So it's called Synapse Data Explorer Pool. So it's you can use it both as standalone or within Synapse. Usually, the determining factor is if you have invested into Azure Synapse, the Synapse Data Explorer is a better option. It's integrated with the rest of the offering from Synapse. So yeah, it's in both.
Gotcha. Yeah, and Vincent Philippe, just from years of covering Microsoft, and I know that the Microsoft IT department was often considered itself Microsoft's first best customer. Does Microsoft use Azure Data Explorer internally?
Yes. Yes. It's actually it was built as an internal tool and it was productized. It was built around 2015 as an internal tool and it was productized at the end of 2018, early 2019. To be available as an Azure product for external customers, but it's used internally massively for analyzing all Azure services. You can imagine all the Azure services are PaaS services. They generate tons of logs and telemetry. And for us, like I'm a product manager, like to analyze the product, the usage of the product, it's a priceless feature to be able to analyze the data and see how people are using it and how we could improve it where people are struggling, etc., etc. So to analyze internal products, we use it all the time. Every team is using it.
Very cool. All right, great. Thank you. Chris, there's another question here. Is ZDX appropriate for only my remote users, or is there a benefit in deploying it for all employees?
That's a great question. So there is immense benefit in deploying it for all employees because no matter where employees are, there are a number of issues that can plague their user experience. Could be isolated devices, even corporate network configurations to get to specific SaaS-based applications and such. So having that visibility across all your employees and their digital experiences to be able to solve their problems efficiently is worth the investment in having a site-wide deployment. Secondly, the more data that Zscaler Digital Experience observes and is able to solve on behalf of your IT teams, the more sophisticated and intelligent the machine learning models get, right? So as a result, the diagnoses get increasingly accurate and precise over time. Now, that said, that doesn't mean that you receive less accurate or less precise diagnoses on day one of using the product because it's still an aggregate of all the learnings that take place amongst all the customers that we have at Zscaler. But to summarize, there is immense value in deploying it across all customers, both your remote / hybrid as well as your office-based end users.
Gotcha. Thank you. Okay. Well, we've got a lot more audience questions here, but we're probably going to have to leave it there. So we'll get all these questions to you guys, and so you can respond later. But just before we wrap up, I did want to give you guys both just sort of an opportunity to leave us with a closing thought or a next step. So Vincent Philippe, I'll turn it over to you first, and then maybe Chris after that.
Sure. Well, thank you guys for having me. I hope that you enjoyed the webinar, and please consult the ends out of the material afterwards to look at all the great links that we put together.
Thank you, Vincent, Philippe. And echoing what Vince just said, please help yourself to some of the handouts to better understand the material that was covered over this event. And secondly, do take a moment to head to zscaler.com/ZDX to take a closer look at some of the capabilities you just learned about, as well as an opportunity to request a demo. And we'd be more than delighted to have a deeper conversations have deeper conversations with you and your teams to see how we can collaborate and help you get to your goals. Thank you so much.
Okay, well, thank you. Thanks, Chris, and thank Vincent Philippe. This was a great presentation, really great demos as well, and thanks for being so generous with your time and your insights here in the Q&A as well. All right.
Thank you for the opportunities.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you. Okay, and before we wrap up, we have one more piece of business. It's the Amazon gift card prize drawing, and the winner of the $250 gift card today is Timothy McCullough from Louisiana. So congratulations to Timothy. We'll be in touch to get you your card. And with that, on behalf of the Actual Tech Media team, I want to thank Zscaler and Microsoft for making this event possible. And thanks as always for attending and for all of your great questions throughout the event. That concludes today's webinar. Have a fantastic rest of your day.